I can still picture the exact second everything turned upside down in my life. I was just waiting in line at the grocery store, holding this basket full of forgettable junk, frozen lasagna, scented trash bags, stuff like that, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at the screen, and there it was, Vanessa's name. My fiancée. The woman I thought I'd spend forever with. I opened the message, expecting something normal, maybe a question about what to have for dinner or a note about the wedding seating chart. What I got instead felt like someone punched me straight in the gut. Just 8 words. Those 8 words were, "The wedding's off. Expect a call from my lawyer." That was it. No explanation. No emotion. Just one cold sentence with a period at the end, like she was firing an employee or canceling a contract. It was so clinical. I stood there, completely frozen. The cashier had to repeat herself twice before I even noticed it was my turn to pay. I went through the motions, paid, walked out, drove home in silence. When I got back, I just sat in my driveway for a solid 15 minutes, staring at the steering wheel. I wasn't crying. I wasn't screaming or hitting the dashboard. I was just quiet. I sent her one message back. As you wish. I knew exactly what her text was really saying. It wasn't just the wedding that was called off. It was her way of telling me, don't reach out. This is done. My lawyer will deal with you now. I wasn't a person to her anymore. I was a problem she wanted off her plate. Something she could toss away without looking back. But here's the part she didn't consider. Something important. You see, just a few days earlier, Vanessa and I had signed the first round of paperwork to start the process of applying for a mortgage together. It was for a gorgeous townhome in a new neighborhood just outside Portland. Vanessa had picked it out herself. She had already mentally decorated it and told her friends it was practically hers. But the deal wasn't finalized yet. And we weren't legally married, which meant I still had some freedom to move. So before I even took off my coat that evening, I sat down, opened my laptop, logged into the bank's portal, and pulled the plug on the mortgage application. 3 clicks. That was all it took. And just like that, the whole thing came crashing down like a cheap Jenga tower. Now, you might be thinking, wow, that's a little petty, don't you think? Maybe. But after 2 years of building a life with her, after passing on a great job offer in Austin just so we could stay near her parents, this wasn't about being petty. This was about self-respect, dignity. And no, I wasn't ready for what came next. Not even 48 hours later, while I was eating some of that frozen lasagna on my couch, my phone rang. The caller ID said, unknown. I let it roll to voicemail. A minute later, I got a message. Hi, this is Tina McClure, legal representative for Ms. Vanessa Callahan. We urgently request a callback regarding the mortgage withdrawal, as it may constitute breach of contract or financial interference. Please contact us immediately. I actually laughed. Urgently request. Huh? Now they were scrambling. So much for cold professionalism. I didn't call back. I waited. And just like clockwork, the messages kept coming. More phone calls. Then emails. Each one sounding more frantic than the last. They hadn't seen this coming. Vanessa, being who she is, probably figured I'd be devastated, maybe even pleading for her to take me back. But nope, I was done. The next day, Emily, a mutual friend of ours, gave me a call. She sounded a little weird. Hey, so, did you really back out of the house? Yeah, I said. Okay. Well, Vanessa's losing it. She already ordered a bunch of furniture and told her parents there'd be a guest room. I almost said, not my problem, but I held my tongue. I didn't want to come off heartless, even though I probably could have. Then Emily added something that cracked me up. She says you're doing this to punish her, that you're being vindictive. I couldn't help but laugh. Vindictive? Nah, I just wasn't willing to be the fool anymore. What Vanessa didn't realize, and what nobody else knew yet, was that I'd been picking up on little red flags for weeks before the split. Subtle things. Late-night texts from people I didn't know. Weirdly timed work meetings. Whispered conversations that stopped the moment I walked into the room. I saw it all. I just didn't want to admit it to myself. But now, everything was falling apart, and for the first time, I felt like I was seeing her for who she really was. So I stopped reacting. I stopped replying. I just watched. I let them run around in circles, trying to make sense of it. Let them squirm. Let the silence do the talking. And in that quiet, the truth started to surface. 2 days later, there was a knock at my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was her dad. The last time I saw Mr. Callahan was about a month earlier, at a family dinner where he stood up, and gave a heartfelt toast about how proud he was to welcome me into the family. And now, here he was on my doorstep, looking worn out and, honestly, a bit ashamed. He didn't even bother with a hello, just blurted out, "What's going on with the house?" I crossed my arms and looked him square in the eye. I'm not buying a house with someone who dumps me over text and sends a lawyer instead of talking to me like a human being. Then I asked, "Are you here on her behalf?" His gaze dropped. "No," he said quietly. "She won't tell us anything." He ran a hand through his hair, clearly stressed. One minute she's canceling the wedding, the next she's losing her mind over furniture invoices and credit reports. I just want to know what's actually going on. For a second, I considered filling him in, telling him everything I'd pieced together. But I held back. "She ended things," I said. "I'm respecting that. But she'll need to deal with what comes next." He nodded slowly, murmured something like, "I told her not to do this," then turned and walked away. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching him leave, and I felt something strange. Peace. Like a weird kind of calm had settled over me. But that wasn't the end of the story. Not even close. Because what I hadn't figured out yet was that Vanessa hadn't just blindsided me with a breakup. She'd been laying the groundwork for something. Something calculated. And I was about to learn the real reason she was so desperate to lock down that house. The first crack in the facade came from an unexpected source, her cousin Jake. We'd never been close, but we'd shared a few drinks at family parties and usually bonded over not quite fitting into her picture-perfect circle. Out of nowhere, I got a DM from him. "Hey man, sorry to hear what happened. Didn't realize how messy things got. Just wanted to say, you dodged a bullet." I stared at the message for a long while before finally typing back. "Appreciate it." "What do you mean, though?" His reply came instantly. "Probably shouldn't say more. Just ask her about Dylan." Dylan. The name didn't ring any bells at first. I'd met a couple guys named Dylan over the years, at her office gatherings, wine-tasting weekends I never wanted to attend, but none that stuck out. So I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The way Jake worded it, careful, hesitant, like he was stepping on a live wire, told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just some random guy. Dylan was tied directly to why she backed out of our engagement. And I had a pretty solid guess what kind of connection we were talking about. I opened her Instagram, even though most of her stuff had recently gone private. But I scrolled through the tagged photos, just in case. And there it was. A photo from a mutual friend's engagement party, the same weekend she told me she was sick and staying home. Vanessa wasn't tagged in the pic, but Dylan was. And there he was, arm around her waist. Real cozy. Real close. My stomach twisted. While I was home, microwaving soup and finalizing backsplash options, she was out posing with another guy and pretending she had the flu. That's the moment when the hurt sort of faded, and something sharper took its place. Clarity. I didn't just want to walk away. I wanted out clean. No shared assets. No loose ends. I called the mortgage lender directly to confirm my withdrawal was locked in for good. I even sent them a screenshot of her breakup text for context. Off the record, they told me her attorney had already called twice trying to get me reinstated on the application. But it was too late. Then, for the first time in a long while, I reached out to Ryan, my old college roommate. These days, he's a real estate lawyer back in Austin. A year ago, he offered me a job, but I turned it down because Vanessa wanted to stay near her folks. This time, I told him I was back in the game. He chuckled and said, "About time." We set up a video call for Monday. Still, nothing from Vanessa. No texts. No calls. Classic her. She never dealt with conflict head-on. Always went through intermediaries, lawyers, friends, subtle pressure. But I wasn't following her playbook anymore. Or at least, that's what I thought. Then Sunday morning hit me with a sucker punch. I rolled over and saw 47 missed notifications, texts, emails, voicemails. None of them were from her. They were all from my bank. Apparently, the night before, someone had tried to access our joint savings account, the one we'd set up strictly for wedding expenses. I contributed $14,500 from a work bonus, specifically to cover things like catering deposits and venue fees. The bank flagged the request almost immediately. It set off a red alert because someone had tried to transfer the entire balance into a private checking account that only had her name on it. I didn't waste time. I got on the phone with the bank, and they froze the account on the spot. While I was still talking to the bank rep, trying to make sense of how far she was really willing to go, I heard my inbox ping. New email. Subject line. Urgent, regarding wedding funds. It was from Tina McClure, Vanessa's lawyer. The message started off all businesslike. Mr. Fisher, my client is concerned about the funds currently held in the joint savings account associated with your now-canceled wedding. As she contributed financially to this account, she believes she's entitled to retrieve a portion of those funds. I actually laughed. That was pure fiction. Vanessa never put a dime into that account. Not one. I had documentation for every deposit. It all came out of my pocket. She used to say she kept her own finances separate, just in case, for flexibility. And now here she was, trying to bleed me dry and dress it up as fairness. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I called Ryan again. "You've got records?" he asked. "Every last dollar." "Then you're covered," he said. "But let me be clear, man. If she's desperate enough to pull this, she's not finished yet." He was right. Later that same night, my voicemail buzzed. It was her. Vanessa. First time I'd heard her voice since that cold breakup text. She sounded shaky. Like she was forcing herself to be emotional. Like she was trying to come off as the victim. "Hey. I didn't mean for it to go like this. I panicked. Okay? Things got messy, and I didn't know how to explain it to you. I swear I wasn't trying to hurt you." I listened to it twice, then deleted it. No response. No second chances. Here's the thing. Once you show someone you're not afraid to walk away, the power dynamic shifts. And Vanessa had never been on the losing side before. She thrived on control. Now, the roles had flipped, and it was eating her alive. Monday rolled around. I signed the contract with Ryan's firm. Full remote to start, with relocation benefits if I wanted to move back to Austin. Just like that, I had my life back in my own hands. Then came Tuesday, and with it, the final curveball. Emily called again. Her voice was tight, strained, like she'd been crying or holding something in. "You need to know something," she said. "Vanessa's telling people she's pregnant." My heart skipped. "She's saying it's mine?" I felt a cold pit settle in my stomach. But then Emily added, "Thing is, Dylan's been practically living at her place since the breakup. Everyone's starting to notice." I could barely speak. Did she say how far along she is? 8 weeks, supposedly. I ran the math. 8 weeks ago, Vanessa was on some kind of wellness cleanse, refused to touch me, said she was resetting her body before the honeymoon. That was the last time we were intimate. Barely 9 weeks ago. Maybe. Which meant there was a strong chance that baby wasn't mine. But she was already laying the trap, trying to tie me to her forever, even after cutting me out of her perfect little future. It wasn't about love anymore. It was about leverage. I barely slept that night. I lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to connect the dots. The timeline. Her motives. Why she didn't break up with me face-to-face, but did it over text and got a lawyer involved right away. Because it wasn't a breakup. It was a strategy. A carefully orchestrated exit. She hadn't fallen out of love. She'd been planning her getaway while building her next chapter with Dylan. Quietly shifting the story before I even knew the plot had changed. And now she was claiming to be pregnant. With my child. Even though the dates didn't match up. She'd kept her distance for weeks, emotionally, physically. Cold. Condescending, even. I remember her calling that whole phase a pre-marriage detox. Said she wanted to be pure for our wedding night. I thought it was odd, but chalked it up to her being, well, Vanessa. Quirky. But in hindsight, it made perfect sense. She was pulling away because she'd already done something she couldn't reverse. Or someone. Dylan wasn't just a side fling. He was the real deal, the reason behind everything. And just when I thought the game was winding down, her lawyer fired off another email, this one even more aggressive. Given the circumstances, my client is evaluating legal action related to financial abandonment and emotional harm. She also wishes to formally notify you of her pregnancy and your presumed parental responsibilities. Presumed. That one word hit like a slap. They were trying to box me in. Create pressure. Force a response they could use against me in court. Get me to panic, lash out, slip up. But I didn't take the bait. I stayed calm. I kept thinking, planning, watching. I knew I had to be careful because this was no longer about a breakup. This was about a battle. And I was just getting started. I got back in touch with Ryan and laid everything out, the supposed pregnancy, the doubts about paternity, the veiled legal threats over money. His advice was simple. Get ahead of it. Be the first to act. You need proof that she's twisting this whole thing. So that's exactly what I did. That same day, I hired a local attorney, someone with serious experience in both family and financial law. Her name was Paige Lawson. She didn't sugarcoat anything. Calm, efficient, and ice cold, which, honestly, was exactly what I needed. By the next morning, she drafted a formal legal notice and sent it straight to Vanessa's attorney. The language was clear. I denied any responsibility for the pregnancy until a court-verified DNA test could confirm I was the biological father. Until then, I wouldn't be providing any emotional or financial support. And we weren't stopping there. Paige also included a firm warning. Any further attempts to access our joint funds, or any public claims of emotional abuse, would be considered slander, and we'd pursue legal action. She even demanded a full disclosure of Vanessa's current financial standing, just in case she tried to manipulate the narrative and say I owed her money over the house deal. I wasn't holding back anymore. Less than 2 hours after that letter went out, Vanessa called. No voicemail, just the missed call. Then she called again. And again. 9 times total that afternoon. I didn't pick up. Later that evening, Tina, her lawyer, called Paige. Said Vanessa was distressed. That she felt attacked, blindsided by how public this was becoming. Paige didn't flinch. Your client made it a legal matter the moment she got you involved and started making threats. My client is simply responding in kind. I wish I could tell you I felt nothing at that point, like I was fully numb. But I wasn't. I felt everything. Anger, disappointment, sadness. Mostly regret. Not because we were done, but because I'd ignored all the signs. The way she never wanted to merge our finances. How she had to control every single plan we made. Every time I brought up a prenup, she'd deflect with a joke. Don't you trust me? The worst part? Some little piece of me still wanted to believe it wasn't real. That maybe she'd just panicked. That maybe Dylan was some mistake she was trying to undo. But life doesn't hand you closure wrapped in bows. It hits you square in the face when you're not ready. And that hit came 2 nights later from Dylan himself. It was around 10 p.m., and I was zoning out in front of the TV when I got a Facebook message from a name I didn't recognize. No profile picture. Just one word. Dylan. The message said, "We need to talk. I don't want to be part of whatever she's doing." My hands literally started shaking. After a long pause, I typed back, "Talk." He responded, "She told me you two broke up a long time ago. She said the wedding was canceled months back and that you were just helping her with the house out of guilt." I felt white-hot rage rise in my chest. We were engaged until the exact day she sent that breakup text. Not a day before. He went quiet for a while, 10 minutes, maybe. Then he sent the next bombshell. "She told me you hit her." My whole world tilted. "What?" I typed. "Yeah," he wrote. "She said she was afraid of you. Claimed you had a temper. That you used to break stuff when you got mad." I sat there in stunned silence. I had never touched her. Never even raised my voice in a way that could be called threatening. The most heated arguments we had were about her constantly prioritizing her friends over our time together. But physical aggression? Never. "Do you believe her?" I finally asked. After a long pause, he replied, "No, not anymore." The next morning, I was on the phone with Paige, giving her every detail of that exchange. She moved fast. Filed a legal counterbrief that would act as a preemptive shield, basically, a defensive motion in case Vanessa ever tried to manufacture abuse claims in court. Things were spiraling into a darker place than I could have imagined. And then Friday came, and with it, the final blow. I got an email from the mortgage lender. Not just some generic system update, but a personal message from one of the senior reps. They wanted to let me know they'd been contacted again by Tina McClure. She'd asked whether the mortgage could proceed without me and claimed I had voluntarily withdrawn with no financial stake remaining. Attached was a revised document Vanessa had submitted. It had my signature on it. Except, I hadn't signed anything. She'd forged my name. I forwarded the whole thing to Paige. She didn't reply right away. Just silence for a good 10 minutes. Paige called me the moment she saw it and said flat out, "This is fraud. We can take it to the police." And honestly, she was right. But at that point, I wasn't looking for revenge. I just wanted it all to stop. Still, a part of me knew better. This wasn't going to quietly go away. Vanessa was spinning out, and people like her don't go down without making noise. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Every 24 hours brought a new mess, another legal stunt, more drama from her corner. It was exhausting. But in a strange way, it was also gratifying. The more she tried to manipulate the situation, the more obvious her desperation became. She was unraveling fast, and I didn't have to do anything to expose it. She was doing that all on her own. Then I got another call from Emily. Her voice was barely audible, panicked, like she didn't want anyone else to hear. "You're not going to believe this," she whispered. "Vanessa's telling people she had a miscarriage." My stomach flipped. "What?" I didn't mean to shout. It just exploded out of me. She posted about it last night. Now everyone's messaging her with condolences. She's saying she lost the baby right after the breakup. I sat there, stunned, completely still, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. Was this her newest tactic? Playing the miscarriage card to spin the narrative? Gain sympathy? Paint herself as the heartbroken victim instead of the one who tore everything apart? I didn't even know if she was lying or if something actually happened. But at that point, it didn't matter. I knew one thing for sure: she was spiraling, clinging to whatever story might buy her time or attention. And it was all slipping through her fingers. It didn't take long for Tina, her attorney, to reach out to Paige again. But this time, the tone had completely changed. Gone was the legal aggression. They were now trying to sound cooperative. "We recognize things have gotten out of hand," Tina said. "Vanessa is struggling with some personal challenges. We'd like to de-escalate." Paige wasn't having any of it. She fired back, cool as ever. "Let's not forget your client attempted mortgage fraud. If she continues this behavior, we're not just talking about a financial dispute anymore. We'll be pursuing criminal charges." I have to admit, hearing that brought me a strange sense of peace. For so long, Vanessa had manipulated things from behind closed doors. But now, everything was in the open. The masks were off, and I wasn't backing down. That same Friday, I got a call from the bank, not about the usual loan status or account update. This time, they were informing me that the fraudulent documents Vanessa submitted had triggered an official report. They had reached out to law enforcement. It was now under criminal investigation. She'd crossed a line, and there was no going back. I forwarded everything to Paige, and within the hour, she had scheduled a meeting with the district attorney's office. As the days passed, things only got messier on our side. Vanessa's social media turned into a sad, chaotic stream of self-pity, crying selfies, cryptic posts about betrayal, vague captions like, "Some people just want to ruin good things." She was crumbling in real time. The once confident woman I thought I knew had completely come undone. She wasn't holding the strings anymore. She was dangling from them. And I stayed silent. I didn't comment. I didn't react. Because by now, it wasn't about the house or the savings or even the lies. It was about the control she thought she had over me, over everything. She believed she could humiliate me and walk away untouched. But what she didn't expect was that I would hold the line, that I wouldn't stoop to her level. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to stand firm and let the truth do the heavy lifting. Then came a phone call that flipped everything once again. It was Mr. Callahan. His voice was different this time. There was no formal tone, no guarded phrasing. He sounded broken, like a man who finally saw what had been in front of him the whole time. "I owe you an apology," he said softly. "I got it all wrong. I should have seen the signs. Vanessa's been lying to all of us." I was speechless. This was the man I'd tried so hard to win over, the one I thought I had to impress just to be accepted. And now he was admitting the truth I'd known all along. He told me everything. How Vanessa had been seeing Dylan long before our engagement ended. How she made up the pregnancy and then the miscarriage to twist the narrative and reel people in. How she'd even borrowed money from her parents to keep up appearances. He sounded defeated. "I'm sorry," he repeated, "and I'll do whatever I can to make this right." And that's when it hit me. All this time, I thought I was the fool, that I'd been played. But in the end, I was the one who walked away clean, because I stopped trying to explain myself and just let the truth rise to the surface. "We'll make it right," he told me. And I just stood there, not knowing what to say. Part of me wanted to explode on him, to ask how he couldn't see it sooner, how he let Vanessa become this version of herself, how he let me get dragged into her mess without ever questioning the narrative. But another part of me, the quieter part that had started coming to terms with everything, knew the truth. None of that would change anything. Nothing he said could undo what had already happened. Nothing would erase the betrayal, the lies, or the months I spent blindly trusting someone who'd never really existed the way I thought she did. But I finally knew what I needed to do. I cut the cord completely. I blocked her number, erased every message, every call log, every trace of her from my phone and social media. I packed up the things she left behind, the ones I knew she'd actually care about, and dropped them off at her parents' doorstep. It was symbolic, sure, but it was also closure. She tried reaching out a few more times after that. A message here, a missed call there. But I didn't even flinch. By then, I'd shed the version of myself who once lived for her approval. That guy was gone. And here's the truth that hurt the most. Realizing that the love I gave her was real, But the woman I thought I was giving it to? She never really existed. At least, not the way I imagined. The truth? She was always orchestrating something. I was just a prop in the story she was writing for herself. And once I stopped being useful, she tossed me aside. It's been a year since all of that now. A full year since the storm. Last I heard, her life's still in shambles. But I'm not checking anymore. I don't care to keep up. Whatever drama she's swimming in now, it's no longer mine to manage. Me? I'm rebuilding. I've got a new home. It's quiet, modest, and completely mine. My name is the only one on the deed. No shared accounts. No strings. And for the first time in what feels like forever, I breathe without weight on my chest. I wake up and feel free. But I'll never forget the lesson buried in all of it. Don't let someone else's manipulation become the blueprint for your future. I lost myself trying to keep someone else's version of happiness alive. Never again. I was naive before. I won't be twice.